Should Pittsburgh fire Mike Tomlin? The easy answer is yes, but not for the reasons you think. Realistically, the reason why the Steelers should fire Mike Tomlin isn't because he's a bad coach or something of that nature. I actually think he's one of the better coaches in the NFL. Even as a Ravens fan, I have mad respect for Mike Tomlin. I mean, you don't constantly keep winning and having winning seasons if you are a bad head coach. Doesn't mean you're necessarily great. He does have things that he lacks at. He doesn't control his locker room very well, and he has other minor issues along that line, but I don't think he's a bad coach overall. Personally, I think he is a solid head coach. But I think the biggest issue that evidently comes into play with Mike Tomlin is the fact that he just can't seem to get over that hump. He keeps the Steelers in mediocre range. They constantly make the playoffs. They finish over 500, but they haven't won a playoff game in forever. What, 2016, I believe, is the last time they won a playoff game. They win and they win, they win, they win, but it continues to be mediocre. But here's the main thing, in my opinion, is look at the help he's gotten. I mean, realistically, he usually has one solid receiver that after he leaves Pittsburgh becomes such a headache that he's basically out of the league. I mean, DeAndre Johnson had a chance to be on the Ravens and be a crucial part of the Ravens, and he couldn't even get out of his own way after leaving Pittsburgh, plus whatever he did everywhere else he's gone. And every other wide receiver before that. Juju is really the only one that's maintained himself in the NFL because he wasn't much of a headache. He was more or less, he watched TikTok too much and did too many TikToks. But George Pickens, the next one in line in that regard. So he's not very good at controlling his wide receiver talent. And they want to be a run-heavy defensive team, and that only works to a certain point. The main issue of Pittsburgh is their quarterback play. I mean, come on, they had Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, two guys who sucked last year. Fields was a little bit better, and I had some thought that Fields could be good this year. I didn't think Russell Wilson would be at all, and I mean, he played better than I thought he would, but he still isn't great. And I think Mike Tomlin's coaching has drawn the Steelers to live in this world of mediocrity, and that's why I think they should fire him. Not because I think he's a bad coach or he does something wrong, it's just you're stuck in this position where it's like, what do? You keep a guy who's gonna win you 9, 10 games every year. You might make the playoffs and be a first round exit every year. You're gonna get embarrassed by some team in the playoffs. Because even though it was only 14 points, they got embarrassed by Baltimore. I mean, we had almost 300 yards rushing. They could do whatever the hell they wanted to get Pittsburgh, who is supposed to be a good defensive team. Passing wise, they had two big deep throw balls, and that's about all they did all game long. I mean, and that's just where they live. They live in this realm of mediocrity, and I think because, honestly, coming down to the end of his career, Big Ben was pretty mediocre, and every quarterback they've had since Big Ben, small hands, or if it was Fields or Russ, was very mediocre as well. So I think, personally, if you ask me, I think that the firing of Mike Tomlin isn't because he's a bad coach. I think it's got to be kind of what the Seahawks tried to realize with Pete Carroll, where living in that mediocrity where he kind of keeps you relevant because he's a good enough coach to keep you relevant, not good enough to make a guy who, like Geno Smith or Russell Wilson in this case for Mike Tomlin, become an absolute stud at quarterback and carry him all the way to the Super Bowl. Apparently that's left up for the guy who coaches the Vikings. I can't think of his name right now. Oh no. um, Kevin O'Connell. Yes, that guy. Couldn't think of his freaking name. Oh my gosh. Anyway, apparently that's up to him to take Sam Darnold and make him better than he really is. But either way, I think this is the situation that Pittsburgh finds themselves in. And firing Mike Tomlin might let them restart and start an actual rebuild and become another potential good team. I mean, every team has to hit a rebuild point. I get the Ravens took Lamar at 32nd overall, but they weren't good leading up to that. They had a few bad years. Flacco was bad. And you know what? They got lucky that they got their quarterback of the future in a late pick in that round, and they didn't have to be bad for a few years to build up their team. But you see what happens when you're bad and you can get a good quarterback. It has helped a lot of different people. And maybe you can get a Jalen Hurts in the second round like Philly did, but that is unlikely, and I think that is why Mike Tomlin needs to be fired. I don't think it's because he's a bad coach. I think he has problems. I think he's got flaws, but who doesn't? I think he's obviously one of the best coaches in the league. I mean, you don't go winning season every year with that quarterback play and not be one of the better ones in the league. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one.